We are now joined live from Tel Aviv by Marc Schulman, author of Tel Aviv Diary and columnist at Newsweek. Okay, so this is the first time we're doing an interview that doesn't involve a current election. Big news, Jimmy Carter living to 100. God bless him. He didn't make it to 120, but 100 is pretty notable. Your thoughts on his legacy and, you know, how important of an event that Camp David was. I was a kid, and I remember that was just the biggest thing since sliced bread.
It was a very big deal. I was a little more than a kid. I had just gotten out of the army when Camp David occurred, and it changed the Middle East in so many different ways. Before Camp David, we had a sort of not a peace with Egypt, but we had disengagement. We moved our forces out of Sinai. I remember serving in reserve duty later on as we pulled off the farthest part of Sinai. We moved out of from the area south of Sharm el-Sheikh. It brought about real peace. It changed the strategic calculus in Israel. Egypt was our largest enemy, the one we were most concerned about. Once Egypt was no longer our enemy, it could change things dramatically. Chances of us being, quote unquote, wiped off the map were infinitely decreased by that peace with Egypt.
Wow.
And the most amazing thing is it's lasted all these years. Think of it. There have been all these different occurrences. Immediately afterwards, there's the war in Lebanon, the second war in Lebanon, all the different occurrences, the Intifada, the second Intifada, all those sort of things that might have upset the peace didn't. The Egyptian-Israeli peace has lasted all these years. And that peace would not have happened to the extent that it did without Carter. I mean, Kissinger was the first person who sort of brought us and the Egyptians together in terms of negotiating, but he was the one who insisted on Camp David. He sat there day after day. Think about it. 17 days he spent in Camp David in the middle of his presidency, giving all of his time to negotiating that agreement. I don't think there's been any president before and after that's done quite that. Obviously, Clinton spent a fair amount of time with Barack and Camp David, but nothing like Jimmy Carter did. His legacy as a president, I think he's been an underrated president. He did more than we think. Things like deregulation of the aviation industry, deregulation of interstate commerce. He was the first person to put solar panels on the White House. He understood the problems of the environment and dealt with it. He was also an interesting president in a different sort of way. He believed in expert opinion. He believed in hearing many experts. He's a man, after all, who was educated in the U.S. Naval Academy. He went on to be a surface warfare commander and then became a submariner in charge of nuclear reactors. Think about that. And the fact is that the amount of science that he needed to know in order to do that, and his belief in science was very strong, and his belief in finding opinions from different scientists to different things. His mentor was Hyman Rickover, the father of the modern nuclear submarine, and of course a Jew. And he was his mentor in the submarine warfare. So he had a complex life. He brought a lot of skills to the presidency, but he came against strong headwinds. Like you said, the economy was a big headwind. That was the time of the
I just remember waiting in lines for gas for like a 2 hour. I remember 2 hour line for gas.
All the Arabs did that, did that to him, so to speak.
Yeah.
That was because of us, to some greater or lesser degree.
Yeah.
So he had that. He had the problem of the hostages in Iran. Now, the fact of the matter is he tried to do something. People forget the fact that there was a failed rescue attempt. No, he was willing to go ahead and take the risk of the rescue, but the military failed at that because one of the helicopters crashed on landing. So he was willing to take the risk, but it didn't work out. So I think he was underrated as a president, and that's a shame. But we look at his career after the presidency, what he did after the presidency. He was an example to everybody that after you've had the greatest or most important job in the world, you can still do good after you've left that job. And he certainly did a lot of good. Listen, he ruffled feathers here in Israel. There's no question about it. We don't like to be criticized. And I won't say I agree with his criticism, but it's okay for people to criticize us once in a while. It's not the worst thing in the world to be criticized. Like was reported, he never questioned our right to exist, the right of a Jewish state to exist. He questioned some of our policies, and that's okay. We're not perfect.
Well, and it's not like he changed his opinion about the, the sovereignty of Israel. He didn't change his opinion on the right to exist, like you said.
No, he strongly supported it all the way through. He thought we were making mistakes. There are a lot of people who think we're making mistakes. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. But we have to be, I think it's a problem we have. We're hypersensitive to taking any sort of criticism. As soon as we're criticized, the guy must be an anti-Semite. Well, okay, someone who says that Israel shouldn't exist, it's an anti-Semite as far as I'm concerned. Someone who says that one of our policies or a lot of our policies are wrong, He could be the best friend of Israel. He just thinks we're making mistakes, and there's plenty of Israelis who think we're making mistakes at
Exactly.
different
Yeah.
times. So I think that's perfectly fine. I think we need a little bit of a thicker skin. I'm sorry we called him an anti-Semite because he's clearly not an anti-Semite. He clearly wasn't this anti-Semite. He believed in our existence. He loved us in that sort of way. And he cared. Listen, if you don't care about something, you don't criticize something. That's a
Right.
reality.
True.
So I think he's a president that will be missed.
And a noble reason for wanting to be president. He's not just a narcissist walking around in a suit. He really was
he wanted to
a
accomplish
simple man
things.
of the people, from Georgia, peanut farmer, the whole thing.
Right, but they're not quite as simple. We keep on saying that. I repeat the fact he graduated the U.S. Naval Academy and was a submariner and ran nuclear reactors. So simple, yes, but unpretentious.
Simple with a complex
probably
brain.
a better word. Yes, no, and unpretentious.
Yeah, that's
someone
a
who
better
wanted
word.
to accomplish a lot.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be missed. Obviously, at 100, he lived a long life. We wish all of us to live that long life and be active deep into his 90s. That's the amazing thing. Deep active, doing good things deep into his 90s. And so we can wish that for anyone we love or care about,
100%.
that they should have the same sort of life.
100%. Thank you very much, Marc Schulman, as always.
My pleasure.